A black person in any sort of situation
can get out of despondency and make something of their lives.
I disagree. If you're born into an impoverished community where there's the worse education, right? Your public school is worse, so you may get into a worse higher education or not get into it at all. There may not be good job opportunities around you, and you may not have the money or the capability to leave the place that you're at.
But there are also white people who live in those neighborhoods. There's Asian people who live in those neighborhoods. Latinos. There's Latinos who live in those neighborhoods.
Agreed.
So why are they able to do it, but black people aren't able to do it?
They also sometimes aren't able to do it. There are.
And you don't think that has anything to do with people's personal choices?
Of course, it has to do with people. I'm not individual. If you go individually, then the individual choice comes around. But I'm talking in terms of the way the system is set up for these people.
An individual with knowledge, know-how, and want to get out of one of these places can.
Absolutely.
And the fact that they have that ability to do it means that it's less about systemic problems, and it's more so about a black culture problem than a systemic racism problem.
I'm going to choose my words carefully, okay? This is a situation where I believe that the exception can disprove the rule, right? Usually people say that, the exception doesn't disprove the rule. Well, I think in this case it could. It could. Because nothing's holding you back besides yourself, okay? In a lot of situations. Now, again, when you have less opportunities, and more distractions, more obstacles, it does make it harder, right? It does solidify the rules in a sense, okay? Where, again, you're born into a poor community, all your friends are, bad influences, your parents is a bad influence, your school is terrible, whatnot. Yeah, those can pretty much reinforce your mentality where you can't achieve anything. But again, you have the possibility of disproving the rule, okay? That's because if you fight against the environment, have a better mindset, you could, right? I mean, like, even the most poorest of school, they still have textbooks, right? Maybe outdated, but you can still learn the principles of mathematics, of English, whatnot, even at the poorest schools. You could still talk to teachers and say that, you want private tutoring, you want extra education, maybe you'll find the teachers that will help you, okay? There are ways to go about it. Even at the poor schools or the worst families, you can go home and continue to study, right? Continue to, even in the poorest, right? We all have internet, I'm sorry, even in the poorest. Even, unless you're homeless, even the poorest of households, they still have internet. They still have internet. Disprove me that. I would get to see a poor house that doesn't have the internet in America. So you can have the internet, you can, look for things to educate yourself more online. But why do I say that the exception can disprove the rule? Because usually, like we said, the exception doesn't usually disprove the rule. Like, let's say the exception is that, yeah, women do date tall men. But if you listen to the words, it doesn't mean that majority of women aren't attracted or have standards of having a tall man. Right? It doesn't disprove it, right? It doesn't disprove the exception. The few women or the amount of women that would date a man or have dated a man that their height are shorter or shorter than 6 feet does not disprove the rule or the norm that majority of women want taller men, right? This is why I believe that, how you